Titan 13 should not have been there. The mining rig was 3 kilometers long, built from industrial alloy plates thicker than battleship armor, and powered by reactors that could outshine small suns. It had vanished inside the Sea of Graves 8 years ago, swallowed by the nebula without a single distress call, emergency ping, or escape pod. 400 crew members gone. Everyone assumed Titan 13 had been ripped apart by gravitational shears. Until today. Captain Aaron Holt stared through the viewport of his salvage craft, the Valkyrie, as the impossible shape drifted into view. The lost rig, floating silently at the nebula's edge, perfectly intact. No lights, no engines, no COMMS. Just a giant metal corpse drifting through violet haze. A voice crackled through the comms. Myra, his second in command. Captain, we're detecting life signatures aboard Titan 13. Aaron's heart kicked. All 400. Every single one. Myra swallowed. But not normal readings. Aaron's jaw tightened. Define not normal. There's brain activity. She took a breath, but no pulse, no respiration, no body movement. Aaron turned away from the viewport, every instinct screaming danger. That's impossible. There was silence on the bridge. Then Myra said what everyone was afraid to ask. Captain, what if they're alive and dead at the same time? Aaron pushed his hand through his hair. His crew stared at him, waiting, hoping. They all knew what Titan 13 meant. If 400 people could come back from the dead, humanity needed to understand how. Aaron made his decision. Prep boarding gear, he said quietly. We're going in. As the Valkyrie locked onto Titan 13's airlock, Aaron felt a cold pressure settle in the air, not temperature, but something heavier. The nebula behind them pulsed softly, like a giant organism breathing. The boarding door slid open with a metallic groan. A long, empty corridor stretched forward. The lights were dead. The air was stale. Dust hung in the beams of their helmet lamps. Myra scanned. No signs of damage. No hull breaches. Then why did they vanish? Aaron muttered. They moved deeper. And then they found them. Frozen bodies lined the corridors. Crew members standing upright, eyes open, mid-step, mid-breath, mid-motion, as if time itself had paused. One man held a wrench in midair. A woman's hair floated, suspended as though gravity had flickered. Two engineers stood locked in a silent conversation, lips half formed around words that would never reach sound. Myra whispered, "There, statues." Aaron reached forward, touching one of the frozen crew on the arm. Warm. Not dead. Not alive. Something in the air shifted. A faint whisper brushed Aaron's mind. Soft, cold, alien. Not yours. Aaron jerked back. Myra spun. What happened? Aaron breathed hard. I think someone spoke. Who? I don't know. It wasn't human. Before Myra could respond, the corridor lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then. Every screen on Titan 13's walls lit up at once, filled with static and a single repeating phrase in an unfamiliar pattern of symbols. But Aaron understood them. Not because he knew the language, but because something pressed into his thoughts, forcing translation. You should not be here. Myra's voice shook. Aaron, something is watching us. The ship vibrated softly. A hum grew beneath their feet, like the low groan of a creature waking up after a long, terrible sleep. Aaron turned toward the frozen crew. If they're stuck like this, maybe the ship isn't just holding them. He aimed his flashlight down the corridor. Maybe Titan 13 is protecting them. The lights flickered again. This time, the screen shifted. A new message appeared. 6 symbols, glowing crimson. The translation slammed into Aaron's head like a whisper forced through bone. IT is awakening. Run. Aaron barely had time to turn when the entire rig shook violently. And from deep inside Titan 13 came a sound no machine should ever make. A long, slow, ragged inhale. Myra's eyes widened. Captain, something on this rig just took its first breath. The sound echoed through the metal bones of Titan 13, like a dying planet gasping awake. Not mechanical, not structural, Something else, something alive. Myra grabbed Erin's arm. Captain, rigs don't breathe. I know. The lights dimmed, then surged, then dimmed again, pulsing with the rhythm of that impossible inhale, as though the entire ship was sensing itself to a heartbeat that didn't belong to any human. Erin steadied himself. Move. We need to reach the command deck. They advanced down the corridor. The frozen crew remained exactly as they were, statues suspended in borrowed life, eyes glistening, bodies warm, but unmoving. Myra stepped close to one. If they're trapped between moments, whatever pulled them into this state must still be here. Erin exhaled slowly. Or watching. A faint vibration trembled beneath their boots. The ship was whispering again. Not words this time, feelings. Curiosity. Fear. Hunger. Then. A sharp jolt of pressure punched into Erin's skull. A voice. No. A presence pushed into his mind. You taste different. Erin froze. Myra noticed. Erin, what is it? He shook his head, breathing hard. Something just spoke again. To you. Yes. What did it say? Erin swallowed. It said, I taste different. Myra's face went pale under her visor. It sensed you. Before Erin could respond, something flickered at the far end of the hallway. Figure. Human shape. Not frozen. Not breathing. Standing. In the darkness, Erin raised his flashlight. The beam trembled slightly in his hand as the figure stepped forward into the light. A crewman. Eyes open, pupils dilated, body stiff, expression blank. He didn't walk, he aligned, shifting in straight lines, like a puppet moved by geometry rather than muscles. Myra lifted her rifle. Sir, don't shoot, Erin whispered. The crewman's mouth opened mechanically, stretching wider than a jaw should. His voice came out, layered human vocal cords, combined with something else shaping the resonance. Chorus speaking through one throat, not yours. The lights blew out. Everything went black. And heard Myra curse softly and flick on her shoulder lamp. Erin did the same. The crewman was gone. Only the echo of the voice remained inside the walls, inside the air, inside their skulls. Do not change what was taken. Myra steadied herself. What was taken? The answer rolled through the ship with distant thunder. Time. A sudden metallic shriek ripped down the hallway behind them. Erin spun. A frozen woman, one of the engineering crew, had shifted slightly. Her arm now a few inches lower, mouth parted as if she had tried to scream. But time itself had sealed her shut. Myra whispered. She moved. No. Erin's voice lowered. She was moved. The ship's temperature dropped sharply. Frost began forming on the walls. Erin's breath forked. Captain, Myra said, voice trembling. There's something walking behind the walls. The metal panel closest to them bulged inward, as though pressed from the other side by an invisible hand. Then another. Footsteps echoed inside the plating, slow, heavy and deliberate. Something was pacing with them. Erin gritted his teeth. We keep moving. Command deck. Now. They pushed forward quickly now, boots clanging on the steel grates. The corridor narrowing and darkening as emergency lights flickered in strange patterns like blinking eyes. They rounded a corner and stopped dead. The corridor ahead was gone. Completely gone. In its place was a yawning void of swirling, violet nebula matter. Tendrils of energy curling like fingers through broken metal. Myra recoiled. The sea of graves. It's inside the ship. No, Erin whispered. The ship has become part of it. The voice returned clearer now, more focused. Not angry. Curious. You move differently from the others. The swirling void pulsed. Show me how you break. Erin turned to Myra. Heart pounding. Run. Because the nebula didn't just watch them now. It reached through the corridor and the rig behind them took its second breath. Asterisk. The air shook when Titan 13 inhaled again. This time, it wasn't just a sound, the entire rig shifted, metal groaning like a leviathan waking from an ancient sleep. The violet nebula spilling through the corridor surged forward, tendrils lashing out like living smoke. Move. Erin shoved Myra ahead as the energy snapped at their heels, melting the floor panels where it touched. They sprinted back the way they came, boots clanging, breath ragged. But the ship had changed. Corridors that were straight a minute ago twisted into new shapes. Doors melted shut. The geometry of Titan 13 rearranged itself as if it were folding around them. "Captain," Myra pointed. A frozen engineer, one they had passed earlier, now blocked the corridor. But he wasn't frozen anymore. His head turned toward them with a slow, unnatural click click click, rotating too far, too smoothly, like a machine imitating human motion. His eyes were wide, wet, and unblinking. "Don't," Erin warned. The engineer's mouth split open in a silent scream. Then a blast of nebular energy punched through his torso from behind, shredding his body into drifting red mist. The tendrils wrapped what remained like curious hands, examining a broken toy. Myra staggered back. "It's using them." "No," Erin said darkly. "It's trying them." The nebular tendrils recoiled, almost disappointed, then surged toward Erin again. "You taste different," the voice pressed against Erin's skull once more, stronger now, tasting his thoughts like fingertips trailing over wet paint. Myra grabbed his arm. "Captain, what is it sensing in you?" Erin didn't answer, because he knew. He just didn't want it to know. They burst into an access ladder well. A vertical shaft plunged up and down 4 dozens of meters, lit by flickering red strobes. "Up," Erin shouted. "The command deck is 6 levels." They climbed fast, hands sliding on cold rungs. The metal trembled with each breath Titan 13 took. Halfway up, Myra froze. "Listen." Erin paused. Below them, something else was climbing. Not footsteps. Hands. Many hands. To many hands, they scraped, slapped, and clawed their way up the rungs, dozens of them like a swarm wearing human skin. Erin shouted, "Go." Myra climbed like her life depended on it, because it did. Erin followed, glancing down only once. He immediately wished he hadn't. Dozens of crew members, all frozen moments ago, were now crawling up the shaft like insects, limbs jerking, heads twitching, and jaws hanging loose. Their eyes were blank. Their movements were wrong, puppets, pulled by strings of time. The swarm shrieked as a single, dissonant choir. Erin climbed faster. A cold whisper brushed his ear, though no one was close enough to speak. "You do not belong to this moment." Suddenly, Erin's hand slipped. No time slipped. For a half second, the world lagged like a corrupted frame. His body froze mid-motion, while his mind remained conscious. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. The swarm below surged closer, reaching for his boots. Then a hand grabbed his wrist and yanked him upward hard. Myra. Double quotes. "Captain, move." The time freeze released, and Erin gasped. They climbed the final rungs and threw themselves onto deck 1. Myra slammed the hatch shut just as dozens of frozen hands slammed into it from below. Bam, bam, bam. The metal dented inward. "Run," Erin said. They staggered down the hall to the command deck. Doors. Erin punched the access panel. Nothing. He hit it again. Still nothing. The ship's voice returned, now a whisper, directly behind them. "Show me why you do not break." The command deck doors suddenly slid open, not from the inside, but because something on the other side pulled them open. Slowly. Smoothly. Patiently. Arin. And Myra stared into the dark room. A single figure stood silhouetted against the glow of the main console. A woman. Still. Silent. But not frozen. Erin's heart stopped. Myra," he whispered. Myra stepped forward slowly, staring at the figure. "Captain." "That's..." Erin nodded once. "It's you." Another Myra stood in the command deck, breathing slowly, eyes glowing faint violet as if lit from within. She smiled. Not Myra's smile. Something else, I swearing it. "Hello, Erin." The doors hissed shut behind them the moment they stepped inside softly, politely, like the ship didn't want to interrupt the moment. Erin raised his rifle, but his hands were trembling. Myra stood frozen beside him, staring at herself. Same face, same hair, same expression, but wrong. To calm, to knowing, to ancient. The other Myra tilted her head. You climb well. I remember learning that. Erin stepped in front of the real Myra. What are you? The copy smiled. A question asked too late. You've already seen what Titan 13 is. You've already breathed it in. Erin felt the whisper of the nebula inside his skull again, like fingers dragging along the inside of his thoughts. Myra whispered, voice shaking. Why do I look like that? The copy blinked slowly. Because I searched your timeline. All of them. I chose the version of you that survived the longest. The version most compatible. Erin's stomach turned to ice. It wasn't mimicking Myra. It was selecting her. The real Myra stepped forward, despite Erin's arm blocking her. You're reading my future. The copy's violet-lit eyes softened almost kindly. I've seen every ending of you. Most are short. A few stretch beautifully. She blinked again. But only one reaches me. Erin snapped, stay back, and fired. The plasma bolt hit the copy Myra squarely in the chest and passed through her like smoke, burning a hole into the console behind her. She didn't flinch. You still misunderstand, she said. I'm not here. I am a moment stretched thin. A possibility. A shadow cast by a future you haven't reached. Erin gritted his teeth. Why appear at all? To explain. She pointed to Erin. You are the anomaly. The whisper in Erin's head flared like heat behind his eyes. Myra grabbed his arm. Captain. The copy continued. Every human on this ship breaks when their timeline is touched. They collapse. They freeze. They stop. She stepped closer, not walking, just arriving nearer. The way a thought suddenly appears in your mind. But you do not break. You bend. Erin staggered back as the room warped slightly around him, a subtle ripple, like the air thickening. The copy of Myra's voice softened. You think you survived the nebula storm by accident. You think time spared you. No. It chose you. Erin clenched his fists. I don't want it. You don't get to choose the physics of existence, she said gently. Suddenly, the entire ship groaned. The lights flickered violently. The other Myra glanced upward. We don't have long. Titan 13 is beginning to unfreeze your crew. Incorrectly, alarms began blaring overhead. A distorted voice echoed over the intercom, crying, laughing, and screaming, all at once. Myra's face drained. What does that mean? The copy Myra turned toward the command windows, where the nebula outside pulsed like a living heart. The ship is panicking. Erin frowned. Ships don't panic. This one does, she replied softly. Because Titan 13 is no longer a ship. The nebula surged, exploding in brilliant violet light. The deck shook. The air rippled. Time shivered. The copy Myra reached out a hand toward Erin. Not Myra. Let me show you what you're becoming. Erin stepped back. Breath caught in his throat. No, he whispered. Stay away. The copy exhaled, almost disappointed. Then Titan 13 will show you instead. The ship screamed. Not metal. Not alarms. A real, living, primal scream. Panels tore open. Lights burst. Gravity faltered. And the command deck windows filled with the impossible sight of the nebula. Pushing into the ship, a tidal wave breaking through reality itself. The copy of Myra vanished in a flicker. The real Myra grabbed Erin's arm. Captain, we need to run. The nebula reached the glass. The glass began to melt. And a voice older than stars whispered inside Erin's skull, you are ready. The command deck windows didn't shatter, they dissolved, turning into drifting dust that mingled with the violet storm pouring inside. The nebula wasn't a gas or plasma anymore. It had solidity, weight, intention. It stepped into the room, not in a shapes but a limiting. Instead, it moved like a curtain of night woven with galaxies, folding and unfolding in ways that made the human brain glitch just trying to understand it. Every ripple whispered a new voice. Every shimmer carried an old memory. Myra grabbed Erin's shoulder, shouting through the rising roar, we can't stay here, move. But Erin wasn't moving. Something rooted him, something old, something familiar. The storm of light pulsed, and every frozen crew member on the Deck jerked like puppets yanked by invisible strings and then went still again, suspended in mid-motion. A dozen frozen stares pointed toward Erin. Myra pulled at his arm. "Captain, please." The nebula surged closer. One tendril brushed the floor and turned the metal into liquid silver. Another slid over a console, and the controls played themselves buttons, pressing, screens flashing, systems activating with no human touch. The ship was being rewritten. Myra shouted, "Erin, look at me." "Focus." Erin blinked hard, breath shuddering. The voice inside his mind was growing louder and clearer. Not chaos. Not anger. Recognition. "You returned. You serve Ived. You bring the broken peace back to Uterin." Pressed a hand to his temple, agony splitting across his skull. "Stop. Get out of my head." The nebula didn't stop. It grew brighter. The storm formed. A shape. Not human. Not alien. Something in between. A figure made of time itself, shimmering like a fracture in reality. Myra stepped in front of Erin, rifle shaking. "Stay away from him." The figure tilted its head, studying her with gentle curiosity, like watching a brave but fragile animal. Then it spoke aloud for the first time, a voice composed of 1,000 overlapping whispers. "He's not yours to protect." Myra was fired. The plasma bolt vanished into the figure, as if swallowed. It kept advancing. Myra backed up, desperation in her voice. "Erin, I can't stop it." Erin felt his heart hammering, panic rising, and then, suddenly, everything stopped. The room froze. The nebula froze. Myra froze. Not like the crew, not suspended. Time itself halted. Erin stood alone inside a silent universe. Then a soft glow bloomed in front of him. The copy Myra stood there again, only now her form flickered, glitching like a failing hologram. "You have seconds," she said urgently. "Listen carefully." He swallowed. "What's happening to me?" "You're beginning to sync with the anomaly." She reached toward his chest, not touching, just hovering inches away. "Humans aren't meant to interact with temporal scars, but you survived one. And now the nebula recognizes you." Erin clenched his fists. "Why? Why me?" Her voice softened. "Because you were supposed to die the night of the storm. But you didn't. Something altered your path. Something pulled you off your timeline and back again. You're not in the stream. You're beside it." Erin's breath shook. "What does it want?" "It wants you to come home." Erin froze. "Home?" She nodded solemnly. "You were touched by the anomaly. It marked you. To the nebula. That means you are one of them. Or should be." Erin stared into her glitching eyes. "I'm human. You are," she said. "But your timeline isn't." A crack of thunder split the frozen silence. Time was restarting. The copy Myra grabbed his hand, not a physical touch, but something deeper, like a thought reaching across a dream. "When time moves again, it will try to take you. You must fight it." "How?" "By grounding yourself. Anchor to something real." "Someone real." Erin's eyes lifted toward Myra, frozen mid-breath, mid-panic, mid-fear. The copy smiled gently. "Exactly." The universe snapped. Time slammed back into motion. The nebula roared. Myra gasped. The figure of light unfolded its tendrils toward Erin, and, this time, Erin didn't freeze. He stepped forward. Myra grabbed him desperately. "Erin, what are you doing?" His voice was steady. "It wants me." The storm brightened, engulfing the room and swallowed him whole. Erin expected pain. Blinding light. The ripping sensation of his atoms being peeled apart. Instead, there was quiet, weightless, but not floating, groundless, but not falling. He stood somehow on a surface made of nothing and everything, a field of shifting starlight that reformed under each step he didn't take. The nebula wasn't a place. It was a mind, a vast, ancient consciousness spread across light years, too big for reality, too heavy for a single timeline to hold. And Erin was now inside it. A voice formed, not outside, not inside, but through him. "You have returned to the gap between moments. Erin turned and saw shapes emerging around him, flickers of people, worlds, memories, and futures all blurred and half-formed. Not visions. Branches. Timelines. Millions of them. He whispered. What is this? We are where time grows, where endings are decided, where you were first seen. Erin felt a pulse deep in his chest, like a second heartbeat, a reminder. The night he should have died. The anomaly storm. The blinding flash. The impossible survival. You touched me, Erin said quietly. Back then, we savaged you. We pulled you into Thegup. We returned you to a body that no longer belonged to a single future. Erin swallowed. So you changed me. We opened you. A sudden pressure built around him, like a tension settling, analyzing and measuring. And now you have come back to the place your timeline desires. Erin's voice trembled. You want me to join you, become whatever you are. Instead of answering, the stars around him rearranged, spreading into a cosmic web of paths, each glowing brighter than the last. One path pulsed violently. Erin stepped toward it and saw himself. Versions of himself. One died inside Titan 13. One saved Myra, but lost a crew. One merged with the nebula completely. One became a walking fracture in time. One destroyed Titan 13 and disappeared forever. One became a bridge between humanity and the anomaly. Infinite Erins, infinite endings. Erin's breath stuttered. No one should see this. You are the first to survive it. Erin turned slowly. If I choose a path, will you let me go? We will follow you. Then what do you want from me? Silence stretched. Then, choose what you will, Beckham. The timelines pulse faster. But before Erin could step closer, a bright, desperate voice cut through the storm. Erin. Captain. Can you hear me? Myra. Erin spun around. A tear in the nebula surface widened, showing a glimpse into the real world, a warped corridor of Titan 13, where Myra stood, reaching into the impossible. Her hand was extended into the anomaly, trembling violently as if her arm were dissolving at the edges. Erin, I don't know if this is working, if you can hear me, but I'm not leaving without you. Her voice shook. You hear me? Not again. Not ever. The nebula dimmed. Its voice rippled. Chiancasayo. Erin whispered. She's why I stayed human. Then stepped toward her. Erin took one step. The nebula surged around him, resisting, trying to pull him back, trying to hold him. You belong to possibility. Erin gritted his teeth. I belong to my crew. He took another step. The nebula screamed a low, cosmic wail that shook the entire field of stars. Myra cried out, gripping the anomaly tear with both hands. Erin, please. Erin lunged for her. Their hands touched. The universe cracked. A shockwave of light exploded outward, and suddenly, Erin was falling. The stars vanished. The nebula dissolved. The cold metal floor of Titan 13 slammed against his back. He gasped, lungs burning. Myra collapsed beside him, sobbing in relief. You idiot, she whispered. Don't ever do that again. Erin opened his mouth to answer. The Theshup's lights flickered. All around them, frozen crew members began to twitch. On the walls whispered, your choice has consequences. The crew didn't thaw gently. They snapped. Bodies convulsed like puppets cut free from tangled strings. Eyes rolled. Fingers spasmed. Voices escaped in glitching syllables. Half formed, half swallowed. Myra recoiled. They're waking up wrong. Erin pushed himself upright, gripping a railing as dizziness hit him, a tidal wave. The nebula had left a bruise on his mind, heavy, throbbing, alive. Check their vitals. He barked. Myra knelt beside the nearest crewman, Chief Engineer Reddick, whose frozen expression had twisted into something like terror. She scanned him quickly, but the readings flickered between impossible values. Pulse, 90. No, 0. No, 140. Erin, the ship can't read them. Reddick's mouth trembled. A whisper leaked out, unraveling. Myra's eyes went wide. He spoke, but the voice wasn't Reddick's. It was layered like three people talking out of sync. Erin knelt slowly. Chief, can you hear me? Reddick's pupils dilated fully, swallowing the color from his eyes. Then it chose AU. Every frozen crew member said it at the same time. 100 voices, different throats. Same sentence. Myra staggered back. What the hell? Aaron inhaled sharply. They're not talking, they're channeling. The anomaly was still here. Still watching. Still reaching. The lights flickered again, and the air pressure dropped. The ship began to creak, metal stretching like bones forced into a new shape. Myra's hand drifted to her rifle. Captain, whatever followed you back? It's inside them. Aaron shook his head. No, it's not possession. It's bleed over. The nebulous consciousness pressed against them when time froze now. Their minds are glitching. So what do we do? Aaron stood, jaw set. We stabilized the ship. We reset the temporal core. Myra blinked. The one that's fused into the anomaly's playground. Yes. Before they could move, all the crew suddenly went still and natural. Statue still heads snapping toward Aaron in unison. Movements to synchronize to be human. Reddick lifted a trembling hand toward him. The layered voice returned. You tore a path out. You weakened Thegup. We bleed because you're cyst. Myra stepped in front of Aaron. Leave him alone. The voices ignored her entirely. All eyes were fixed on Aaron. Return to the gap, or we will pull the rest through with us. Aaron's blood ran cold. You're threatening the crew. You chose an anchor. So we choose ACOST, Myra whispered. Aaron, what does that mean? Before he could answer, a scream tore through the deck. Not human. An OTA machine. Something in between. The nearest crewman jerked upward, lifted by nothing, his feet dangling above the floor. His body twisted unnaturally, limbs bending as though gravity had forgotten how joints worked. Another crew member rose. Then another. Soon. Half the deck were hanging midair like marionettes on invisible cosmic strings. Myra backed into Aaron, voice shaking. Captain, what do we do? Aaron's heart pounded. He remembered what the copy Myra said. Anchor yourself. Ground yourself. Choose. He grabbed Myra's shoulder and pulled her close. We run. They sprinted toward the exit. But the ship reacted instantly. The doors slammed shut. The lights died. And in the pitch darkness, the whisper returned closer than ever, vibrating inside Aaron's bones. If you will not return willingly, we will remake you. A hand called a vacuum, and soft as starlight closed around Aaron's wrist. Not Myra's hand. Not human. And the corridor filled with violet light as the anomaly began to pull him back into the gap. Asterisk. The violet light swallowed Aaron's arm first, like ink spreading through water, like a bruise blooming against reality itself. His bones vibrated. His breath fractured. His heartbeat stuttered into two overlapping rhythms, one human, one something else. Myra didn't hesitate. She grabbed his other arm with both hands and planted her boots against the floor, bracing with her entire weight. Nitrogen monoxide. She shouted, teeth clenched. You're not taking him. The anomaly tugged harder. Aaron's body stretched, literally stretched, his arm elongating by millimeters that felt like miles. As though space was thinning around him, he screamed. Myra screamed with him. The corridor flickered violently, walls twisting, ceiling warping like soft clay as reality bent into directions at once. One direction was toward Myra, the other toward the void that claimed Aaron. A voice boomed through the metal. Your anchor is too young. Myra snarled. Let him go. She yanked with a force born of terror, and something deeper, something primitive and furious, and for a split second, she pulled Aaron back a few inches. The anomaly reacted. The entire hallway inverted, gravity flipping, lights imploding, metal deforming into impossible angles. Myra and Aaron were thrown upward now, sideways slamming into what used to be the ceiling. Aaron cowed upward. The violet tendril tightened, dragging him again. He could feel himself splitting, like parts of him were stepping into different versions of the corridor, overlapping, misaligned. Myra, he whispered, voice glitching, doubling. If it takes me, run. No. Her voice cracked, hot tears cutting through dust on her cheeks. I'm not losing you to some cosmic ghost story. Aaron shook his head weakly. It's not a ghost. It's time. The violet energy pulsed angrily. Return and the crew lives. Resist and they break. And behind them, behind the warped corridor walls, Erin heard it. Bones cracking. Voices twisting. Crew members crying out in layered, distorted agony. Myra heard it too. She froze. Erin saw the instant her heart split between him and them. Myra, he rasped. Let go. Never. Then she did something he didn't expect. She leaned in and pressed her forehead to his. Erin, she whispered, trembling. I'm your anchor. You said it. You chose it. So fight back. He shook his head. I can't. Yes, she breathed. You can. Or we both die here. Erin felt the nebula grip tighten and the voice thundered. Choose your timeline. Myra cupped Erin's face with one shaking hand. Choose me. The corridor was shaded with violet light and something in Erin snapped into place. Not fear. Not surrender. Do not panic. A decision. The first clear decision he'd made since stepping aboard. Titan 13. He grabbed Myra's wrist, the one holding him, and squeezed. His voice came out steady. I'm done being dragged. Then, with every ounce of will he had left, Erin turned toward the anomaly and screamed, I choose myself. The reaction was instant. The violet tendril exploded in a shockwave of temporal distortion, sending Myra flying backward and Erin collapsing onto the floor. The anomaly recoiled, shrinking, writhing like a wounded animal made of stars. The corridor slammed back into shape. Gravity reasserted. The lights flickered to life. Myra scrambled across the floor, sliding to Erin. Captain Erin, are you alive? He coughed. Mostly. She half laughed, half sobbed, pulling him into her arms. But then the ship groaned. A deep, grinding, ancient sound. And the anomaly's voice whispered once more. You broke Theafer. So, now we break their ship. The floor beneath them. Buckled. Panels exploded. The entire structure of Titan 13 shuddered violently as the nebula began tearing. The vessel out of reality. Asterisk. The tearing began as a low shiver, like the ship was taking a sharp, involuntary breath. Then the metal screamed, not creaked, not groaned. Screamed. The floor rippled under Erin and Myra like a sheet of liquid steel. Bolts shot from the walls. Panels peeled open. Gravity flickered, slamming them down, then sideways, then letting them float for a heartbeat before crushing them again. Myra held on to Erin, one arm locked around his waist, her other hand gripping a support beam that twisted in her palm. Warm clay. The hull is destabilizing, the anomalies rewriting the deck structure. Erin forced himself to stand, barely still, dizzy, still half into timelines. It's trying to collapse the ship into the gap. We need to reach the temporal core before the hallway ahead of them split open like a wound, revealing swirling violet energy devouring the bulkheads. A voice thundered through the breach. You chose pain, so you will drown in it. Myra pulled her rifle, firing directly into the anomaly breach. The plasma bolts vanished, erased from existence before they made contact. Erin grabbed her arm. Weapons won't work on it. We need the core override panel. Their eyes met, breathless, terrified, locked in the knowledge that they were seconds from being erased completely, utterly from every version of reality. Deck C, Myra said. Core access is through the engineering spine. Erin nodded. Then we run. The ship disagreed. The corridor stretched, literally lengthened, warping forward like elastic, doubling the distance to the next touch. Myra cursed. It's displacing space. It doesn't want us reaching the core. Erin clenched his jaw. Then I bend space back. He concentrated. The anomaly inside him, the mark he'd carried since the storm, flickered awake. The world blurred, doubled, and split into branching paths around him. He felt the corridor shifting, felt the time scar within him wanting to slip back into the nebula's rhythm. But Myra grabbed his hand. Her touch grounded him, anchored him. Erin forced the distorted corridor to collapse back into shape with a guttural shout. Reality snapping tight with a violent crack. The distance shrank back to normal. Myra stared at him, wide-eyed. Erin, how did you? Later, he gasped. Move. They sprinted. Behind them, the anomaly howled, ripping through rooms like a storm made of broken time. Frozen crew were lifted into the air, suspended in impossible poses, then abruptly scattered across space, vanishing in bursts of violet fragments. Myra flinched at every scream. "We're losing them every second." Erin kept pushing forward, even as his vision blurred into overlapping timelines, each showing a different version of the whole, a different version of him and Myra dying. Hurt, failing, he ignored them, just ran. They reached the engineering spine. The hatch was half collapsed, but Erin and Myra forced it open together. Inside, sparks showered from ruptured conduits. The air was hot, sharp, and electric. The temporal core pulsed at the far end, its casing cracked, the anomaly leaking inside it like glowing roots. Myra stared in horror. "It's already infected." Erin swallowed hard. "We can still override it." The ship shuddered again. A wave of violet light surged through the spine and every screen lit up with the same words. "Return our Seismerol." Stepped in front of Erin, raising her rifle. "Ignore it." Erin approached the core, hands shaking as he pulled the emergency override panel open. Sparks bit his fingers. The screen glitched, showing multiple versions of his reflection. "Myra, when I press this, it will rip the anomaly out of the core and out of the ship, but it might rip me out with it." Myra grabbed the front of his suit desperately. "No, don't you dare. We just got you back." Erin looked at her with something like peace. "I made my choice." She shook her head violently. "Erin, I won't survive this ship without." But she didn't finish, because the anomaly itself coiled into the spine, sliding along the ceiling like a living nebula serpent, its voice vibrating through the walls. "We do not let go of what belongs to us." The tendril of starlight shot toward Erin, and Myra threw herself between them. The tendril hit her instead. Erin screamed as Myra's body arched violently, her eyes glowing violet, her voice choking on 1,000 overlapping tones, and the anomaly whispered, "If the anchor refuses to break, then the anchor will be taken." Myra. Erin caught her before she hit the floor. Her body trembled violently, like every cell was being pulled in different directions. The violet glow beneath her skin pulsed erratically, crawling up her arms, her neck, and into her eyes. She looked at him, but the gaze wasn't fully hers. "Erin, run." Her voice glitched, splitting into 3 tones. "I can't hold it." Erin felt something inside him snap. "No, I'm not losing you. Not again." The anomaly tendril writhed above them like a cosmic predator, its form expanding into the entire engineering spine. Panels bent outward. The air warped. Screams from other timelines bled through the walls, echoes of versions of Myra already consumed. Through her shaking, Myra clutched his wrist with shocking strength. "Erin, listen. It's inside me. It's using me as a bridge. You need to cut me off, cut me out before it reaches you." He shook his head violently. "No, you're not a bridge. You're my link to staying sane. I won't serve you." She tried to speak, but the anomaly inside her pushed to the surface, her voice suddenly becoming the creature's. "The anchor is strong. We will remake her. She will guide you back to us." Myra screamed. Arching again, Erin grabbed her shoulders. "Fight it. You're stronger than it thinks." Her expression twisted, not in pain this time, but in defiance. Her voice, her real voice, forced itself through the distortion. "I'm not your anchor." The anomaly hissed, furious. The walls cracked. The temporal core pulsed violently. Erin realized something. The anomaly needed Myra, because he was resisting, because he had changed since the nebula, because he had her. He stood. If it wanted him, fine, but it wouldn't take her. Not again. Erin stepped between Myra and the anomaly tendril, spreading his arms wide. "You want your claim. Take it from me directly." The anomaly paused, like it hadn't expected that. The violet storm recoiled, studying him, swirling tighter. Myra, barely conscious, whispered, "Erin, don't." He placed his hand on the temporal core interface. "I'm done running." The anomaly struck. At the exact moment, Erin slammed his palm to the override. The core shrieked. The ship howled. The world went white. The anomaly's tendril hit Erin, but instead of consuming him, it snapped. Recoiled. screamed in a voice that shook the entire deck. "You defy what you are." Erin staggered forward, glowing now just like Myra had moments before, but different. Control. Focus. Alive. The anomaly's energy coiled around him, but it couldn't enter, couldn't take him. Myra looked up, eyes wide with awe despite the pain. "Erin, you're stabilizing it." He reached for her. "I'm stabilizing you." The violet glow seeped out of her skin and into him, drawn like water to gravity. Myra gasped as her body returned to normal, the anomaly's influence leaving her completely. The tendril convulsed in rage. "You steal from us. You steal what is ours." Erin felt the power tearing through him, threatening to split him apart, but he held on. "For Myra." He growled through clenched teeth. "You never owned me." The anomaly lungered again, but this time, Erin didn't retreat. He grabbed the tendril with both hands, and for the first time, the anomaly screamed in fear. Myra, finally able to move, pulled herself up. "Erin, what are you doing?" He glanced back, eyes glowing bright white blue like stars collapsing into fire. "Ending this." The anomaly tendril writhed in Erin's grip, its form fracturing into shards of violet mist and impossible angles. No creature had ever been held by the anomaly before. It reacted like something that had never known pain. The deck plating around Erin liquefied and resolidified. Lights melted into spirals. Time staggered like a drunk, trying to walk in a straight line. Myra watched helplessly, awe and terror mixing in her chest. "Erin, let go. It'll tear you apart." But Erin only tightened his grip. "No, it's afraid. For once, it's the one afraid." The anomaly convulsed violently. Myra felt the pull of alternate timelines tearing at her again. Dozens of versions of Erin poured into her mind. Erin is dying. Erin is screaming. Erin is begging her to run. But the real Erin, the one standing before her, stood firm against all of them. He stepped forward slowly, even as the anomaly pushed with the fury of collapsing stars. "You kept showing me different versions of myself," he growled, dragging the tendril closer. "Versions who broke, who surrendered, who feared you." The anomaly shrieked, the sound splitting gravity itself. Erin pulled harder. "But you never showed me this version." Myra felt a shockwave rip through the ship as Erin ripped the tendril down to his chest. He wasn't absorbing it. He was binding it. Like a chain, like a harness in a storm. The anomaly's voice ripped through reality in a chorus of 1,000 dying worlds. "Humanity is not meant to hold us. You cannot be what you are becoming." Erin's eyes exploded with light fractals spinning outward, like blooming galaxies. He spoke with a calm so cold it chilled Myra's blood. "I'm not becoming anything." He pulled the anomaly closer until their energies collided, sparks of temporal distortion scattering like meteor showers. "I already am what you feared humans would become," Myra gasped, feeling the truth in every word. The anomaly trembled, a natural, aberrant, defying pattern. Erin leaned in and whispered, "Human." The anomaly ruptured, an explosion of violet storm and collapsing dimensions. Myra was thrown across the deck, slamming into a wall. Gravity inverted twice, then failed entirely, leaving her floating. Erin, however, stood steady, but not unchanged. The glow inside him wasn't fading. It was settling. Stabilizing. Becoming part of him. The anomaly, what was left of it, tried to reform, gathering in wisps around the ceiling. Erin lifted his hand in the air, bending around it and clenched it into a fist. The anomaly froze mid-movement. "Every particle is locked." Erin spoke softly. "No more." He crushed his fist inward. The anomaly shattered like glass, its remnants sucked into a silent implosion no bigger than a spark. When silence returned, the ship groaned, flickering back into a stable timeline. Myra, shaking, floated toward him as gravity returned. She landed on her knees and crawled to him. "Erin, what are you?" He turned to her, his glow fading slow, his breath steady for the first time since the nebula incident. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know what I'm not." She cupped his face with trembling hands. "And what's that?" "A puppet. The ship. The anomaly. The timelines. Nothing controlled him now. Myra leaned her forehead against his, whispering, "You saved us." "No," he murmured. "We saved each other." But Myra's expression suddenly changed, fear returning, because as the last light faded from Eren's body, a single violet spark flickered deep in his chest, still present, still alive, still watching. Myra gasped. Eren, the anomaly. A piece of it. He closed his eyes. I know. Eren didn't collapse. He didn't scream. He simply breathed slowly, deliberately, like a man wrestling with something one else could see. Myra grabbed his shoulders, panic rising. Eren, listen to me. That spark, it's not done with you. We need to extract it before it. Eren gently placed a hand over hers. No. If we try to extract it, it'll trigger a full resurgence. This spark isn't a fragment. His eyes lifted, staring past her, as if he could see something in the air that didn't exist. It's a seed. Myra froze. A seed, to grow it inside you. Eren nodded. The anomaly didn't just try to consume me. It tried to rebuild itself through me. Myra shook her head violently. No, we're not letting that happen. I'm calling Medbay, Temporal Division. Anyone who'd. Eren grabbed her wrist again, firmer, colder this time. Myra, stop. If Temporal Division scans more Trice containment, they'll trigger the spark's defensive pattern. You saw what one tendril did to the ship. Myra swallowed hard. Then what do we do? Just let it grow inside you. Eren looked down at his chest. The small violet glow flickered once, like a heartbeat out of sync with his own. No, I'm going to control it. Myra stared at him. He'd lost his mind. You can't control the anomaly. No one in the galaxy has ever. Eren stepped closer, eyes steady. I already did. I controlled the tendril. I stabilized the storm. I survived its assimilation attempt. Whatever happened to me in that nebula, it changed me. Not just physically. He touched his temple. Up here, too. I can feel its patterns. Its thinking. Its intentions. Myra shivered. What is it thinking right now? Eren hesitated. Then, it's afraid. A shock went through Myra. The anomaly. Afraid of you. No, Eren said quietly. Afraid of what I'll become if I keep resisting it. Myra stepped back. What you'll become, Eren. That's exactly how it gets control, by convincing you you're special, chosen, evolved. That's not what I'm saying. He reached for her hand. I'm saying that for the first time, it encountered something it doesn't understand, something it can't predict, something it can't rewrite. He squeezed her fingers. Human unpredictability. Myra exhaled. SHAKILY. And continued. Every species the anomaly has ever touched follows patterns, behavior loops, predictable fear, predictable surrender, predictable collapse. Myra's voice dropped to a whisper. And humans don't. Eren nodded slowly. We fight longer than we should, hope longer than we have any right to, and break rules the universe didn't expect anyone to break. Myra looked down at his chest again. But if the spark grows, what happens to you? Eren's voice softened. That's what scares me. Myra grabbed his face suddenly, forcing him to look her in the eyes. Well, I don't accept losing you, she said fiercely. Not to a creature, not to a timeline, not to a spark. I don't care what it takes, we'll fight it together. Eren's expression broke for just a second. Then he smiled, small, tired, grateful. Before he could respond, the ship jolted sharply. Alarms blared. Warning, temporal signature detected on all decks. Possible recursion event. Myra's eyes widened. What now? Eren felt it to a ripple in space. Not dangerous, not violent. Just familiar. He whispered. Someone's here. The air shimmered. And then a figure stepped through a distortion curtain. A figure wearing Eren's face. Myra gasped. Another you. Eren stared back at himself, older, colder, with violet scars across his arms. Older. Eren smirked. Well, looks like I found the timeline where I didn't die horribly. Younger. Eren stepped forward cautiously. What are you? Older. Eren tilted his head. You. His eyes flickered with the same spark. but much further along. Myra paled. How far along? Older Erin smiled. Far enough to tell you this. He pointed at the spark in younger Erin's chest. Is only the beginning. The air around the older Erin crackled with violet static. His presence felt heavy, like standing too close to a collapsing star. Myra instinctively pulled Erin back, but the older version raised a hand calmly. If I wanted him dead, the older Erin said, you wouldn't have heard the door open. Erin narrowed his eyes. You didn't come here to kill me. So why did you come? The older version stepped forward, boots echoing in the flickering corridor. To warn you. Myra scowled. Warn him about what? The spark. We already know it's dangerous. Dangerous. Older Erin chuckled a hollow, humorless sound. Dangerous is the first 5 seconds. After that, it becomes inevitable. Erin stepped between Myra and the older version. I'm not becoming what you became. Older Erin's smile faded. You think I wanted this? He held up his arm. Violet veins crawled beneath his skin, pulsing in jagged patterns. This isn't corruption. It's convergence. Myra's voice trembled. Convergence with the anomaly. Older Erin shook his head slowly. No, convergence with something beyond it. Both Erin and Myra froze. Beyond. The anomaly. Myra whispered. The older version nodded. The anomaly isn't a creature, or a dimension, or a storm. It's a symptom, a leak, a fracture point of something far larger. Erin swallowed hard. What is it leaking from? Older Erin locked eyes with him. From us. Silence. Cold. Heavy. Myra blinked. What are you talking about? Humans didn't create the anomaly. No, older Erin said. But someday, they will. In a timeline so far ahead that it loops back behind itself. Erin felt a chill creep up his spine. You're saying humans become whatever made the anomaly? Older Erin answered without hesitation. We become something worse. The ship lights flickered violently, like even the circuits rejected the idea. Myra shook her head hard. No. Humans don't end up like that. We don't become universe eaters. Older Erin stared at her with a depth of sorrow that looked centuries old. Humans don't become monsters because they're evil. They become monsters because they're desperate. Erin stepped closer. What desperation leads to this? Older Erin looked him in the eyes, the same eyes, but with centuries of buried pain. The desperation to stop extinction. Erin stumbled back. Humanity goes extinct. In most timelines, older Erin said. Yes. Myra whispered. Erin, we can't let this happen. Erin clenched his fists. Older Erin nodded. Good. That's why I'm here. To tell you the truth, while you're still early enough to change it. He pointed at the spark inside Erin's chest. That seed isn't the anomaly trying to rebuild. It's the future trying to connect to its past. Erin froze. You mean, that spark is a link between me and what humans eventually become? Exactly. Older Erin stepped even closer. You can still break the chain, but you need to understand something first. His voice lowered to a whisper that felt like a prophecy. In every timeline, the anomaly always returns to one person. Always the same human. Always the same anchor. Myra's breath hitched. Erin. Older Erin finished the sentence. You. Erin's stomach twisted. Myra grabbed his arm, trembling. Why him? Why always him? The older version looked directly at her. Because he is the first human the anomaly couldn't consume. He turned back to Erin. The one human who could turn it back. Erin stared. Stunned. Older Erin added quietly. And in every timeline, but this one, you fail. Myra's knees nearly buckled. Erin whispered. Then why am I still alive in this timeline? The older version smiled a small, proud smile. Because this is the only timeline where Myra didn't die. Everything inside Erin went cold. Myra stared at the older Erin. I die. In every other timeline. He nodded. You are the difference. You keep him human. You keep him fighting. Without you, he becomes. He gestured at his own corrupted form. This. Erin pulled Myra close, jaw trembling. Older Erin took a slow breath. And now you know the truth. The spark inside you isn't your greatest threat. It's your greatest responsibility. Erin's voice cracked. What do I do? The older version leaned forward and whispered the words that would change everything. You have to kill the version of yourself that creates the anomaly. Myra gasped. Arin froze, and he, the older Erin, added, isn't born for another 32,000 years. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick enough that even the hum of the ship seemed afraid to intrude. Erin tried to speak, but nothing came out. Myra held tightly to his arm, her nails digging into his skin. Finally, Erin managed a single, strangled word. What? Older Erin didn't blink. 32,000 years from now, the anomaly's true source, the human who becomes its origin, will be born. Not created, not summoned, born. Myra shook her head, voice cracking. That's impossible. How can a human be the source of the anomaly? It existed long before. Older Erin raised a hand. No. What you think existed before are the echoes. The anomaly leaks backward in time when the origin awakens. It sends its influence across tens of thousands of years. It always has. Erin's breath hitched. You're telling me the anomaly isn't from the past? No. Older Erin's expression hardened. It's from our future. Myra staggered back, a hand over her mouth. That means humanity becomes powerful enough to distort time on a universal scale. More than that, older Erin whispered. Humanity becomes desperate enough. Erin felt the spark in his chest pulse once. Sharply, as if reacting to the truth, he pressed a hand over it. Older Erin continued. The spark inside you is the earliest point of contact the future could manage. You're the first successful anchor. Every timeline tries to connect to you, because you're the one anomaly that can be consumed. Erin looked up sharply. Then why are you here? If the spark can communicate with me, why send? Well, you. Older Erin sighed. Because the spark doesn't show you the cost. Myra stepped forward now, fists balled. What cost? Older Erin hesitated. Then slowly he rolled up his sleeve. His arm was a web of scars, broken timelines stitched beneath translucent skin. Places where the anomaly fought him, places where it grew inside him. This, he said, is what happens when you don't act in time. Erin swallowed. What did I become in your timeline? Older Erin didn't answer immediately. He lifted his gaze. You became the gate. A chill ran up Erin's spine. What does that mean? Myra whispered. Erin. The gate to what? Older Erin exhaled slowly. To the beginning of the anomaly. It grows in you until you're no longer human. Until you're a vessel. And then by instinct, by desperation, by the future's need to exist, you tear open the moment that births the anomaly. Myra felt sick. So the origin, the human who causes the anomaly. Older Erin stared directly at Erin. Is you? Erin stumbled backward as if stabbed. No, 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 no. That's impossible. Older Erin shook his head. It's not your fault. Not by choice. Not by will. It happens because the spark reaches critical mass. Erin felt the spark pulse again, this time stronger. Myra grabbed his shirt desperately. You won't become that. I won't let you. Older Erin nodded. In this timeline, you can stop it. Because Myra is still alive. Because the connection isn't corrupted yet. Because you haven't been isolated. Erin's voice trembled. Then tell me how to stop this. What do I do? Older Erin stepped close, so close their foreheads nearly touched. You have two choices. Erin didn't breathe. Myra held her breath. 1. Older Erin said softly. You destroy the spark now. Rip it out before it roots deeper. But doing so may kill you instantly. Myra shook her head violently. No. No. We're not doing that. Older Erin raised a second finger. 2. You learn to control it. Shape it. Turn the future against itself. And find the moment. 32,000 years ahead where the version of you that creates the anomaly is born. His eyes darkened. And you kill him. Erin stared in horror. I'm supposed to kill a human child. Older Erin shook his head. No, By the time you reach him, he won't be a child. He paused. He won't be human. Erin felt the world tilt around him. Every instinct screamed against both choices. Myra stepped in front of him, shaking. There has to be another option. Older Erin's voice softened for the first time. There is. A third one. The one I tried. Erin's heart pounded. What was it? Older Erin met his eyes. I ran. Myra inhaled sharply. What happened? Older Erin looked away, jaw trembling. The anomaly consumed everything. Every world. Every timeline. And in the end, his voice cracked. It ate me too. Silence. Brutal. Final. Erin's hands curled into fists. I'm not running. Older Erin's expression loosened. A faint smile flickered. Good. That's why I came. You're already different from me. He placed a hand on Erin's shoulder, firm, grounding. You're the only version of me who has a chance. Because you have something I didn't, Erin whispered. What? Older Erin looked at Myra. Someone who keeps you human. Myra's lip trembled. Erin pulled her close. Older Erin took one step back. Your spark will awaken fully in 3 days. When it does, one path becomes irreversible. Erin swallowed. What happens in 3 days? Older Erin's face hardened. The future comes for you. Before Erin could speak, the older version dissolved into violet dust. As if yanked violently back into his timeline, the ship went silent again. Myra gripped Erin's hand. 3 days. Erin stared at the last drifting particles, until the anomaly tries to finish what it started. The corridor felt colder, and now like the ship itself understood the countdown. Erin stared at the place where his older self had vanished, his breath slow and unsteady. Myra held his hand tightly, knuckles white. Erin, she whispered, we'll figure this out. We will. 3 days is enough. Erin didn't answer immediately, because he felt it, the spark inside him pulsing faster now, like it had heard everything, like it was preparing. He finally turned to her. Myra, listen. I'm not afraid of dying, he paused. I'm afraid of becoming the thing that ends everything. She stepped closer, pressing her forehead against his. You won't, because you're not alone. Erin exhaled slowly, grounding himself in her warmth. But then a loud metallic groan echoed across the ship. Followed by warning. Dimensional. Pressure size rising in all sectors. Temporal structure. Destabilizing. Myra whipped her head toward the nearest console. What, already? That's impossible. 3 days shouldn't cause this. Erin felt the spark snap inside him like a whip. Myra. His voice was low. I think we misunderstood. She looked up sharply. What do you mean? He placed a hand on his chest. The 3 days were at the time until the anomaly. Comies. He looked toward the ceiling, toward the trembling hull. It's the time until I open. The ship's lights flickered violently. Again, this time with a violet tint. Myra grabbed Erin's shoulders, panic breaking her voice. You're not opening anything. You're not losing control. You're not turning into that thing. Erin clenched his jaw. He wanted to believe her, but the spark kept pulsing faster and faster. In a rhythm not his own, a heartbeat from somewhere else. From somewhere else, then a deep, rumbling boom shook the entire deck. They stumbled as gravity fluctuated. Warning. Dimensional shear detected in engine core. Recommend evacuation of lower decks. Myra's eyes widened. The core. Erin. The spark it's sensing with the ship's temporal drive. Erin's breath froze. That means the spark is trying to use the ship as a conduit. Myra grabbed his face, voice shaking. We have to get you away from the core. Now. But Erin didn't move. His eyes slowly shifted, glowing faintly purple. Myra sucked in a breath. Erin. He blinked hard, fighting something inside. I'm fine. I'm fine. It sounded more like a plea than the truth. Another boom. Walls buckled. The deck beneath them warped like heated metal. Myra pulled his arm. We need to get to the isolation bay now. They ran, alarms screaming around them. As they moved through the corridor, doors flickered, glitching between dimensions. One moment solid steel, the next transparent like glass, the next showing stars where metal should be. Myra gritted her teeth. The anomaly is already bleeding through. We don't have hours, we have minutes. Erin stumbled for a moment, gripping the wall. His eyes glowed brighter. Through gritted teeth. Hesed. It's trying to open me like a door. Myra ran to him. Fight it. He nodded, shaking. I am. But she could see it. His veins faintly glowing violethis pulsating. To some external reality bending around him in microbes. He wasn't just being influenced. He was becoming a beacon. They pushed into the isolation bay thick blast doors, sealing behind them. Myra raced to the control panel. I'm putting you inside the stasis chamber. Slowing your body might slow the spark. Erin leaned against the wall, exhausted. Myra, if I transform, if I become the source. You won't, she snapped. Get in the chamber. He stood slowly, unsteady. He stepped inside the stasis pod. Myra's hand hovered over the activation panel. Erin, before I do this, promise me something. He looked at her, breathing shallow. Anything. Fight. For yourself. For every timeline. For us. Don't let that spark tell you who you're supposed to become. Erin touched the glass panel between them. You're the reason I'm still me. Myra swallowed. Hard. Then she pressed the activation sequence. The chamber hissed, filling with a dense pale blue stasis fog. Erin exhaled once, and then the spark inside him exploded outward. A violent pulse of violet ripped through the chamber, shattering half the restraints. Myra stumbled back, shielding her eyes. Alarms blared. Warning. Spark activation event detected. Temporal breach forming. In stasis bay. The fog cleared just enough for her to see him. Erin on his knees, hands clawing at the floor, eyes wide and glowing intensely. A halo of violet distortions swirling around him. Myra's breath hitched in terror. Erin. He lifted his head. And for the first time she saw another consciousness behind his eyes. A voice echoed inside the room. Not spoken, not human. The gate is awakening. Myra backed away, shaking. Erin, his own voice layered beneath something else, whispered, Myra, run. But she didn't. She took a step toward him, as the breach tore open behind him, like a wound in the universe pulling reality inward. And something from 32,000 years in the future began reaching through. The sky above the ruined Starforge glowed like a wounded sun, waves of molten light rippling across the dark. As the forge mine finally collapsed in on itself, Joren stood at the edge of the platform, armor cracked, breath heavy, every muscle shaking from what felt like centuries of strain. He had never heard silence like this before, or impossible silence after an enemy that once screamed across galaxies. Lira landed beside him, wings flickering with exhausted sparks. It's over, she whispered, barely believing it herself. The forge mind is gone. Every connected machine across the grid just went dead. Not dead, Joren corrected. Free. Below them, a billion nanite threads that had once obeyed the forge mind drifted like metallic dust in a slow, peaceful spiral. No longer weapons. No longer slaves. It just matters, waiting to be reshaped. The allied fleet began lighting up the comm channels, cheering, crying, and screaming names of the fallen. But Joren didn't answer, not yet. There was one last thing to do. He placed a hand on the core crystal. The same crystal the enemy had tried to corrupt. The same one Lira had risked everything to save. Its surface pulsed faint gold, the last echo of the forge mine's collapse. Joren closed his eyes. Humanity doesn't build chains, he whispered. We break them. And with a quiet exhale, he released the crystal into the swirling metallic dust below. The dust surged upward, captured by its light, then spread across the sky as slow motion supernova, turning the battlefield into a cathedral of shimmering stars. Lira stepped closer. You just gave them a seed, she said softly. A second chance, Joren replied, for whatever they want to become. The fleet broke the atmosphere above them, casting long shadows over Thefog world. Admiral Thane's voice crackled through the final remaining comm channel. Commander Joren, report. Is the mission complete? Joren looked at Lira. She nodded once, eyes tired but hopeful. Mission complete, he said. The galaxy is ours again. Cheers erupted across the sky, thunderous, overwhelming, and unified. But Joren felt something deeper. For the first time in generations, humanity wasn't fighting to survive. They were fighting to build. Lira reached out, taking his hand as the wind carried the last metallic stardust into the horizon. What now? She asked. Joren smiled a real smile, not the hardened one forged by endless war. Now, he said, we write a new chapter. And with the ruined star forge breaking apart behind them, they walked forward together toward a dawn the galaxy had never seen. Humanity had endured. Humanity had risen. Humanity had changed the fate of the stars.